and welcome back to Pac Talk podcast. I am not your host, Peter Vodden, but Emylee Vodden, his wife, taking over, as I often do. Today, I'm taking over because I wanted to chat about nutrition, and this isn't going to be about, the breakdown of what you think nutrition is going to be. I just want to talk about nutrition because last week, a 5-year-old girl came up to me and asked me what I ate. And I was like, what do you mean? What do I eat? And she's like, well, you look good. What do you eat? And I kind of dug a little bit deeper just because I thought it was an interesting question. And I was like, well, I eat food that fuels me and food that I enjoy and food that helps facilitate the results that I want. And I try to eat a diverse plethora of foods around proteins and vegetables and carbs and fats. I always try to just act like a cartoon character, right? Especially around a 5-year-old. If you guys think it's bad and annoying, I am like this to the nth degree. So I just try to turn it into fun. And I'm like, why do you ask? And she said, I'm kind of worried that I'm getting fat. And obviously my heart broke because it's just a reminder of really what got me into this. As a young kid that is just navigating in the world and feeling lots of feelings and having changes in your body and judgments from other people and just always wondering that what you're doing is right. And I said, why do you think that you're getting fat? And she was like, well, because people say oh, don't eat that because you're going to get fat. And I kind of just sit back and I'm like, oh, well, I'm sorry that you feel that way, or I'm sorry that that's happening to you. Right now, honestly, you don't need to worry about too much about whether or not food is getting you fat. That's not, it either gets you skinny or fat. You need to think about food as, is it fueling you for all of the fun things that you want to do? And is it bringing you, joy and health and happiness and makes your body feel good? And then is it helping you do all of the fun things in life that you want to be able to do? And that's all I think that, you should be thinking about right now. And I just have been thinking a lot about that conversation. And so I wanted this podcast to be how we should talk about nutrition to our kids so that we don't fuck them up for the future. But then I realized well, even if you don't have kids, it's really how we should be talking about nutrition to our inner kid. How can we reparent ourselves and reteach ourselves and attach more meaning to nutrition that is not just, oh, this food either makes you fat or makes you thin. Can we evolve to a place where we look at nutrition holistically, mind, body, spirit, energy, satisfaction, and fuel? So I wanted to do this episode because I really feel I break nutrition down into a framework. I have this framework and really it's not I created this framework and then started doing it. I now am just looking back at over a decade plus in fitness and having, myriad changes in my body through pregnancy, postpartum, rheumatoid arthritis, hip dysplasia, all of the, car accident, disc herniation, all the things that have happened. And so I feel I have an interesting lens on how I think about nutrition. So if you've ever felt stuck in the dieting loop of gaining and losing and restricting and rebelling and just hating yourself in the process, or just really struggling with the idea of how to eat right for you and in a sustainable way, then that's hopefully what I'm going to offer today. So I tried to create a little framework of what is healthy nutrition. What does it mean to have a sustainable nutrition that I can make last throughout my entire life? Through all the fads and phases and all of the things, what is just a framework that I can always use as my true north, as my compass, to just make sure that I'm, eating right for me. So nutrition equals joy times fuel times results. Yeah? Sometimes I start with joy and sometimes I start with fuel. I kind of just like let my own intuition do it. Like sometimes I say, sustainable nutrition equals fuel times joy times results. And sometimes I say it starts with joy. It really kind of depends. That's the formula, right? So, breaking this down, sustainable nutrition. First, we want to look at this from a lens of fuel. So, what do we want to eat for? What is our energy levels, right? Like we want to think about nutrition of fueling our day, our life, our habits, our work, our energy levels, our relationships with other people, our fitness, our goals if we're exploring something beyond that, right? So I always like to think of, okay, well, how should I eat? What's the right diet for me? It always starts with, well, I have to think of food as fuel. And so what do I want to fuel for? And I start from that lens of what am I fueling for? What kind of energy am I looking for? And sometimes it starts really with an assessment of like, okay, where am I at right now? How am I fueling myself? What's my energy? What are my workouts like? What's my recovery like? How, when I pick up my kids, am I like patient with them or am I snapping back at them? Like, all of those things I feel like are really reflections of how we're fueling ourselves, because then it gives us the fuel, the ammunition, the capacity to be able to show up as our best self. So I always start with food as fuel. And then of course, it really then lends itself into like, okay, well, you're fueling yourself for what? So if it's our kid, he does BJJ and soccer, he has long days at school. We know what the school is providing. So when we're giving his snacks and his, extras, then we are thinking about like balancing that out. So there's protein so his muscles grow big and strong and that he feels recovery throughout the day and that his energy levels are sustained. He has, carbs, both quick carbs for that like cognitive function and sprint energy action. And then he's got some of those, slow enduring carbs because he does have long days. And then obviously he's there at school to learn. So we're making sure that he also have fats for cognitive function and for sustaining all of that, right? So this is a little bit in the weeds, but this is just kind of like how we think about fueling Wyatt for a day of school and then going into BJJ, and then how he needs to fuel for BJJ versus soccer, and all of that then becomes a conversation around fueling himself in the right way, as opposed to there being good foods and bad foods. There's foods that give us different purposes, right? And the first lens is usually from a place of, well, what do I want to do? How do I want to feel? How do I want to perform? And so start first from a place of that question. How do you want to fuel your body? Depends on what you're fueling for. So ask yourself that, how do you want to feel, perform, show up for yourself and others in that? And then the second one is joy, right? So we eat for fuel and then we eat for joy, because food is more than fuel. It is connection. It is, it's culture, it's enjoyment. It is deep roots in how we connect with others and how we commune with others. And so I think that is what makes it really hard. A lot of diets just completely remove joy from the equation, right? It's like, just do this for this result and sacrifice joy. But then we find that it's not sustainable. And ultimately, like the little seeds of joy, like little micro moments of joy, is what keeps you going. And knowing when and how and what creates those micro moments of joy for you in the form of fuel is just as important to know, what fuels you for nutrition. So an example of this would be, my kid loves ices. He likes to go to the movie theater and get an icy. And so instead of saying, oh, that's super unhealthy and jam-packed full of sugar and just, make you feel like an animal and like, oh, that stuff is terrible for you. Maybe there's times when we've said lenses of that or felt like that or wanted to be like, oh, that stuff is just garbage. We try to stop ourselves and instead say, okay, well, we're not eating this for fuel, right? Because this is a direct road to crash and burn. Like we know that this type of food is more for the joy aspects. It's more for these micro moments that, enhance our experiences of going to the movies, of, having a fun first week of school and then going in, celebrating with a fun treat. And instead of then attaching a piece of shame about how it's unhealthy and how you should hate yourself for it. So we're celebrating, but then ultimately having having shame and guilt attached. It's just knowing, okay, cool, we're eating for joy right now. And there's a time and place for joy. And as long as you know that you're not doing it to fuel a specific purpose other than connection, culture, and the things that make life worth living. So leave room for joy in your talks about nutrition, and instead of good versus bad, just think, okay, time and place, portions, and fuel versus joy. Then there comes the conversation of results. So back to my story of chatting with a 5-year-old who is worried that she's going to be fat. And then later touching base with her mom. And basically it was like her mom thanking me for saying, thanks for giving me a vocabulary that I can talk about nutrition with my kid. And that really is why I wanted to do this podcast, because I'm like, oh, that's what we were missing, is just like the little quick 2 manual of how to like overcome like decades worth of marketing and all of that, so that we can just get back to, okay, well, what's right for me and how do I facilitate healthy habits for my entire family, and how can I talk about nutrition? So back to my story. I say, yeah, totally. I love this framework of just thinking of it as like, you eat for fuel, you eat for joy, and then you eat for results. And then she goes, results. My daughter didn't talk about that. Like, what do you mean for results? And then I go, oh, well, yeah, of course I didn't talk about results. Like at this point, like she's 5, like we don't need to think about eating for results. Like she's eating for fuel and she's eating for joy, and knowing that balancing that out and establishing strong relationships with that means that sets her up for whatever results she wants in the future. And that can be performance-based or, cognitive and brain based. It can be, physical, it can be emotional, it can be energetic. It can be, again, how you want to show up for yourself, for others, how you want to push your body and your mind to its limits. That's where results come in. And, really it's like, we talk about that when we're ready to talk about that. We talk about that when your kid comes in and says, hey, mom, I really want to do this. What's it going to take to help me get there? And then you go, okay, well, let's look at all the little things that we can do and, really kind of maximize and, little tweak and have little, fine tuning this. I always go back to the DJ board, right? Like this DJ switch of like, it's not one thing. Everything is all maxed out at 100%. It's that given your life, there's a give and a take, right? That sometimes if you are like now circle to when, maybe you're getting older and you want to chat about, as in you're not 5. So you're an adult and you're chatting about maximizing your body composition. We had this conversation with someone who was saying, man, I'm losing body fat. I'm gaining a little bit of muscle. I feel really good, but like my workouts are kind of suffering a little bit, like I'm really trying to max out, but I can't because I'm eating in this calorie deficit. And how do I do that? And we had to have that conversation of like, well, yeah, that's the give and take. That's the sacrifice, and that's the trade-off. That really is like, it goes back to the DJ board of you can't have everything maxed out at 100%. You want to look at the balance of the holistic sound that you're trying to create. And then, okay, well, this needs to come down a little bit in order for me to build this up. And when you think about that, then it's not you failing at something and you like, A-ing at something. And you got an F here and an A here. It's that you're trying to create this symphony of sounds for your life, right? And that you are the DJ that's trying to just really like fine tune the sound and maximize the sound. So again, it sounds good to you. It sounds great for other people, and we can all jam out together. Yeah. I always love that metaphor. So again, thank you for indulging me. So, the back to results. So, she asked, why didn't we talk about results? I said, just wait on that. Like, just start off with how thinking about nutrition instead of good or bad, or, fat versus skinny, or, muscle versus fat loss, or like whatever that is, just start off with thinking there's food that fuels me for what and for how. And that's what I want to explore first. And then I always got to leave room for joy, because otherwise it's never going to be sustainable. Because ultimately, in order to get results, we need to have the compound interest of these habits, of the fuel and the joy compounded over time with the right, in the right formula geared towards your lifestyle right now and what you need in your life right now. And that's what's going to give you the results. So really, it's like, for me, when we bring all of it in together, I stopped dieting. I stopped thinking about good versus bad, or healthy versus unhealthy, or whatever it is. I just leave room for my life, leave room for nutrition in my life to have nuance, to have different purpose. And that really I want to enjoy the process of it. And I want to catch myself anytime I'm bringing in some of the guilt or the shame or the restriction, or things that I know are a rabbit hole, or really like, a rabbit hole into a bit of a darker thing. And, I've been doing this for a long time. So I've had seasons where I've been super restrictive and super in it and on it and proud of myself for it. I've had times where I've been super restrictive and then found myself like neck deep in a bag of dark chocolate coconut chews from Whole Foods. Like, I have done it all and been everywhere. And I'm saying now, after over a decade in it, for me, what brings me a lot of peace and a lot of results is this formula of thinking that nutrition ultimately boils down to fuel times joy times results. And that is what creates sustainable nutrition. All right. So let me just check my notes real quick. I think I've covered everything. Yeah, I think we're good. Honestly, we're good. If you love this episode, if you like these kind of more philosophical conversations on nutrition, as opposed to like what to eat, here's the macros, here's how to do this, here's the formula for muscle build, fat loss, and da-da-da. If you want more conversations about how to talk to our kids about nutrition and fitness in ways that we don't screw them up for life, then comment, share this episode. Every person that you share it with, really my goal is to help people talk about nutrition in positive and empowering ways. I always say our job at PHAROS is to be the best, to lead with light, to be the best part of your day. And so that means that it is our job to kind of attack some of those dogmatic things, some of those things that are like built on restriction and shame and all the stuff that we run from and the things that we hate about the fitness industry. So I really appreciate when you share this, because every time you share, we are working to overcome the dogmatic nature and the negative nature that has plagued us over industries, over decades in this industry, and really kind of moving towards a more positive future. So it sounds bigger than it is, but a little share goes a long way. Thank you. Appreciate you all. And as always, it's an honor and a privilege. See y'all soon.